Okay, good evening. The Design Review Board number 1 public meeting of April 29th, 2010 is called to order. Please refrain from talking amongst yourselves and please turn off or put on vibrate all cell phone and pagers. If you need to talk, please leave the meeting room. Anyone who wishes to speak, including applicants, is asked to completely fill out one of the speaker cards provided at the table by the front door and submit it to staff. You will be called to present a case or speak on a specific item as desired. Anyone who wishes to be re-noticed about a case must completely fill out one of the postcards provided at the table by the front door and submit it to staff to receive notice of subsequent meetings. Current Design Review Board agendas are available by calling our Design Review Board hotline at 818-548-3171 or by visiting our website at www.ci.glendale.ca.us. A handout describing the procedures of the meeting, possible board decisions, and Design Review Board appeals is available at the table by the front door. Please note that appeals must be filed within 15 calendar days of the decision date. The chairperson may reorder agenda items at his or her discretion. Roll call. Board member Aliano will not be joining us this evening. Chairman Insua.
Here.
Board member Palmer. Here. Board member Simonian will be joining us shortly. And board member Yu.
Here.
Report regarding a posting of the agenda. The agenda for this meeting was posted on the bulletin board outside City Hall at or before 5 p.m. on April 22nd, 2010. Oral communications. Discussion is limited to items not a part of this agenda. I do not have any oral communication cards. Chairman Insua, do you have any?
No.
None today. Which brings us to the review calendar. I'm not aware of any staff announcements. And we have 3 items on tonight's agenda, so I would like to turn the meeting over to Chairman Insua.
Okay. At the last DRB1 meeting, we had a case, which was 1 PDR 2010-004-A. And after review of that meeting, we elected to have the meeting, or I should say, let me read what it says here so I can be clear, that the case was to be continued from the Design Review Board meeting previously held on April 15th, 2010, in order for the applicant to provide additional information to help us understand some of the issues concerning this case. Been informed that the applicant requested just recently, via phone call, I guess, to extend or not have, because he didn't have or they didn't have enough opportunity to get information that we thought and we let them know would be very helpful for this case. I think we were clear as to why we thought it was important to keep this case, as staff has always been directing us, to a date certain, so that cases, when they come to DRB, there's a lot of effort and time spent, both by, I'm sure, the applicant, city staff from the city of Glendale, to prepare for these cases. And there's been sort of like a feeling that if we have them for date certains, it moves cases along and moves the process along, doesn't spend us unnecessary effort of money and time, and also at the same time allows for the applicant to have a speedy resolution to an issue concerning their case. That's the whole spirit of it. I know that both the building department and planning has put effort into preparation for this case. And we, in fact, I think we have our chief inspector, or one of our senior inspectors of design review or building and safety here. I'm of the feeling that the city did all of its effort as requested to prepare for this case. I'm of the feeling that at least right now we should open this case, give an opportunity for us, the commissioners, to hear the effort that's been put into this case up to this point, have an opportunity to move slowly through that process and allow our other commissioner, Art, to hopefully show up, so that we have more information to better assess this case and the merits of this case. And I think that would still give us the opportunity to, if we feel so inclined, to continue it for another date certain, or if we believe that we have enough information before us to be able to make a decision on this case. Would that thinking be consistent with what we think the policy, if you will? Any thoughts from the other commissioners on this board concerning my feeling that we should open it, at least step one, to allow our staff to make the efforts? Comfortable with that?
Yeah,
Okay.
and we can ask questions too.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is it appropriate for me then to open this case and not go through the speaker request and go first to the staff, or is there a protocol or a process or procedure that I should follow where we are now? Okay, and I would be opening it as I would open up any case for review. Okay, we're comfortable with that? Okay. Well, let's open this case. Let me read the case again. This is case number 1 PDR 2010-004-A. Project address is 1400 Highland Avenue. And I turn it over to staff in the way that you wanted to present this information.
Sure. Good evening, Mr. Chair and members of the board. Just going to read the brief project description for the audience. This application requests to legalize nail-on new construction fiberglass sliding windows. These windows were installed prior to obtaining proper review and approval by the city. This application, once again, was continued from a previous meeting on April 15th with the condition for the applicant to provide an original stamp plan, a window schedule, inspection card for the building permit they pulled, which for the expired window change-out permit they had filed with the city. It appeared that there was a deadline for April 26th for them to provide these materials. However, no materials have been received by the applicant. From the previous meeting, it appeared that there had been quite a few questions, a chronological timeline regarding this address, and the permits that had been pulled had been provided for the file and also for the board members, which is before you. And I'm just going to kind of go over the key points of what happened at this address. January in 2008.
Can I hold you for a quick second? Has the applicant had an opportunity to have just this in front of them, this chronology, so that they can follow along? Why don't we just give them a copy so you can, it's easier, obviously, when you have something in front of you. Okay. Thank you. Sorry for an update.
No problem. In January 2008, a building permit to construct a 160 square foot addition on the east side of the building, the home, had been filed. The final inspection for this 160 square foot addition had been final on July 10th, 2008. A correction notice had been issued by our neighborhood services to stop the work for window changeout that had happened post the final of that 160 square foot addition. A window permit application had been filed with the city on August 28th, 2008. And following the day after that, on August 29th, a brown coat inspection had been approved by Building and Safety. And this, because it had not been finalized, this window change-out permit had expired on February 20th, 2009. That's kind of like the key points of my chronology. There's further detail that's right before you. We do have present today staff, Gabe Reza, also from Planning Department, Mike Cook, the Building Inspector Supervisor, and we have Renee Sada from Neighborhood Services. One special request from Mike Cook, just to because he has prior engagements this evening, he would like to kind of get the building inspection questions out of the way as soon as possible. But this concludes staff's report or presentation, and we're available for any questions.
Okay. Well, in respect for your time constraints, your name, sir, so we can be introduced and hopefully try to ask some questions concerning the timeline and permitting.
Mike Cook.
Thank you, sir. And you're what from department?
I'm from the Building and Safety Inspection Department.
Thank you, sir. Any questions we may have?
Yes, Dennis stated that the correction notice to stop work order for the window change out, you said that was after the final on the building, that little 160 square foot addition?
That's correct. The final for that addition was July 10th, 2008. A stop work order by Neighborhood Services went out on July 24th, 2008.
So they had changed the windows after they were finaled off.
The final, once again, was just for the rear addition, for the 100 square foot addition at the
But there
rear.
are windows in that rear addition.
Well,
They're different.
this actually stop work order was for the windows that were existing and not to be touched, and were not part of that addition.
So this is separate from that small addition.
That's correct.
So in other words, the plans that we see here that showed the window changeout to match the supposed windows that were changed out during the addition that were of a certain type that didn't match was done only after building services went to the site and saw that they were doing the window changeout. The plans didn't come first, the violation came first, and then the plans were then submitted.
That is correct.
Okay.
No. The BB 2008-0850, which is the drawings that they brought in to change out the 18 windows on August 28th, in that application, did it specifically say that the windows were going to be changed out to a wood-clad window?
From staff's recollection, it was supposed to be a fiberglass hung window. Unfortunately, the city did not keep a copy of this, is because
So we have no record of it.
we do not, only because the building permit had expired, and once that it expires, the city will not keep it because it had never been final, it's not record.
Okay.
It seems kind of strange, just because...
Well, if you, excuse me, if you will refer to the letter dated January 16, 2009, that was sent to the owner by Inspector Lonnie Brown.
Right.
It said, additionally, you're required to remove the installed vinyl windows and install wood-clad windows as required by the approved plans.
But what if the applicant says, well, we never said wood-clad windows, then where do we stand with that then?
You stand with that whether you want to believe the owner or you want to believe
Well, I don't
something
think
that
it's
we
a
put in
matter of
writing to
believing
the
somebody
owner.
over another. I think we need to be able to prove that whatever they submit or whatever that we approve.
Did we hear anything from the owner to dispute that at the time?
Well, their word. Just
No, but when did they dispute this?
no, I mean, I'm taking it beyond this case. I'm just saying that as a city, we need to be accountable for that part of it as well.
I understand, but
If we're
since
gonna
we don't
approve
have the
something, we need
plans,
to have a proof of what we were approving.
Well, I think that
this is a statement in writing.
Yeah.
I mean, in lieu of the plan. I don't understand why the inspector would say that if it was not so.
Right. And then it seems reasonable to me that as being reported, that unless the plans have been finalized, the cities don't keep documents. They would be inundated forever with open permits and documents that never, I mean, can you imagine? But let me see if I remember some certain key things of it. For memory's sake, the original plans that showed the addition indicated certain types of windows, and they were of the type of windows which were not installed at the construction site. That's a fact. And that the windows were identified to be of good quality. And some of the quality windows that I remember on those drawings were, the higher grade windows that would not be off-the-shelf nail-on windows. The applicant in the first construction did not install those windows. And because the nature of the addition was not required design review board, the design review board members or planning that would normally go out to check that item off was not necessary because it was not a design review item given that it waived design review. And that normally the building inspectors do not check design review issues. That's done by planning. And it is the obligation of the applicant, per the drawings that were approved, to install the work that they say they were going to do. Those windows were not the windows that were approved, permitted, and on the drawings. It was nail-on windows. Then the applicant, from what I see here, starts changing out all the other windows of the house to be of the typical, which we see out there right now, of the nail-on windows, which were never approved anyway. They then submitted drawings, which I recall indicated a couple things. One of them, that the windows shall match the existing windows as to the addition, which gives the impression that the windows of the addition were installed properly per the permits and the plans. They were not. They were the nail-on windows. That was done post neighborhood services going out and giving them a stop to do that work. Those drawings that I saw, the drawings of this date that were never finalized, of I would say permit August 28th, indicated a certain type of window, in addition to saying it's going to match the windows in the back. Those at the very bottom said of those higher quality windows that you would not get as nail on. The drawings that I saw showed that. Now, they weren't the permitted drawings, but that's what was being shown on the windows. So I believe, from all documentations I've reviewed, plus the permit set for the addition, there was an intention to install and a requirement to install those windows, which they never did. So I think if we start with that premise, they never installed the original windows that were done under permit for the drawings, and that the record shows. We have records that those windows were not installed. Everything after that can be debated and discussed, but I think that can't be debated.
Can I just ask
We,
a
and
overall-
we began just a few moments ago.
Okay.
We moved slowly through it.
Very good.
We thought that because the city and staff who've been working on this did what they were asked to do, provide background information, and they did a chronology, we thought that it would be appropriate for us, at least right now, to open the case, to give an opportunity for planning and building and safety inspection, and I also see neighborhood services here, to present what their findings are, for at least we have an opportunity to see after that period what we may feel concerning this case. And that's where we were. So,
Thank you. Thank you for the update.
okay. So we were just asking some questions, and I was just doing a quick summary of what I remembered on this case.
Very good.
So please, we were just asking staff questions, and they were dialogue.
Can I ask a hypothetical then? On that 160 square foot addition that initially, let's say it's not this address, it's another home, they want to do an addition to the back, which doesn't trigger any of the DRB or any of the planning people. When they do drawings for that to bring to building and safety, they need to specify what kind of window and those kinds of things.
Yes.
They do it, right? So it's going to say a vinyl window, or it's going to say a wood-clad window, fiberglass, or aluminum, or whatever. Now, when it gets to the field, the inspector that's inspecting, let's say, the brown coat, the nailins, the header piece that goes above it, all those things, they're checking to make sure that that window matches the drawing, right?
Yes.
Okay. And the same thing would be for the rest of the window change-out as well, for that one.
Yes, for a window change-out, whatever the plan calls for. It calls for a wood window, or it calls for a vinyl window with grids, without grids.
Right.
As long as whatever it says in that scope of work are the plans,
Right.
then that's what we're looking at, and then what we approve.
Okay. So then, getting a final on a project in which the window was different, then I guess they either changed it out or something happened along the way that it was not inspected, but it was changed out or something.
It's changed
something
out.
happened.
And then they approved it either
Okay.
by we sending them back to zoning, or
Okay. Because I just wanted to check to make sure that there wasn't some kind of void in there where planning is not involved and building and safety doesn't check it, and then there's this void in there. But it seems like the building and safety department would be checking that window to make sure that it's the one that's on the plan.
yes.
Okay. Okay. Now, if the letter reads that vinyl windows need to be changed out to wood-clad, are we to assume that they installed 18 vinyl windows out there, and then and then this letter is telling them to change it out to wood-clad? Because now they're claiming that they're wood fiberglass. So were they changed out 2-3 times then? Is that...
Not that I know of, no.
You know what I mean? How do we get from A, B to C, I guess?
Microphone.
No, the planning department is not contesting the material. The staff, upon field investigation and through proof of an invoice, agrees with the applicant that the material is fiberglass.
Right now.
Right now.
Okay.
Currently, whatever's out there is fiberglass. I believe, just to touch bases on what you were asking Mr. Malis earlier, that regardless of what the letter says in regards to material-wise, this application is expired. So if by any chance the city had erred in issuing a permit that said vinyl slider, that permit is on. It is expired.
I see.
It
So then
no
the
longer-
final portion of this letter could not, maybe it's
I mean, if
incorrectly stated? or-
correct, and
that if we had plans, this whole debate would go away. I was quite surprised, as I said before 2 weeks ago, that on something that is specific to this case, the windows, the permitting, the plans, everything that has to do with this window, the applicant doesn't have anything. It seems to me that if I wanted to refute anything, and my basis is what I received and understood how I proceeded, there it is. But without that, I'm perplexed. That's there it is. End of story. Here's what I got. Here's, and that's why we didn't get that before. They for the original DRB. We gave 2 weeks. It seemed reasonable, and still no supporting information. My concern, and of course, my concern is that I don't want to use this term, but effort does have a financial cost associated to it. At what point does the department's staff, effort, resources suddenly say we've done everything we could, we've expended all of our time and resources to a point where we can't go any further, and the applicant has just one thing that they need to do, show us differently, and the argument could go away.
Excuse me, if the questions to staff, if you're finished with the questions to staff and staff has concluded providing additional information, you may want to up to the speakers if you have any speaker cards.
But
So we left the last hearing 2 weeks ago, and we asked the applicant to come back with proof. Nothing has been presented?
No.
Very good. That was my number one question.
Yeah. Okay. I know that you're on a tight schedule. I'm of the belief that we should open it, that we should proceed as we originally thought, allow the applicant and the speakers to speak, and proceed with this information that I believe would be of the completion of the nature of the enough so that we could debate it and hopefully come to a decision. Anyone feel differently?
I think that's a great idea.
Any other questions or any things other than that? Okay. I think I've already opened it, but why don't we open it to the first speaker? The applicant, I want to make sure that I have the right people. I have two cards here, and one is the applicant, one is the owner. Is there any order that you'd like to go, either the owner or the applicant? Whoever like to come first? Okay. And you would be the applicant or the owner?
Applicant.
Okay, applicant. So this, your name and address, sir.
Okay.
Thank you.
Amik Shanazarian with AMAC Group, 639 West Broadway, Glendale, 91204. As I indicated, called Dennis a few days ago asking for request for extension of this project due to the fact that we contacted the contractor and he's still looking for the documents. But if we open the case, I have some documents that owner provided to me as far as the material, purchase of material, and that I would like to submit it to you. In the last meeting, they indicated that the material was less expensive material. The gentleman, I believe, spent close to $16,000, $17,000 on windows. This is from the company. The question that I have is this. My understanding, as indicated to us, is that if a building permit expires, then the plans are being destroyed. What happened to the building plans on BC 2008-008? That was final. So that plan should have been stayed, should have been microfilmed. On that plan, it should have stated what is the type of the window. That was added on the addition at the back of the building. That was one that we were looking for it, but we couldn't find the original one on that one. Now, the second item is that if inspector came and checked the lathing on this project, does that mean the windows were installed? So they were supposed to be installed afterwards. I mean, if you give the lathing okay, and you're giving a partial okay, partial final on this project on September 15, 2008, based on your chronological order, it says final partially approved on Kiva. So I don't understand the order on this. If the lathing is done, so you should have it before you stucco it. You should have the lathing to be done on the project, the windows. So I think that there's some sort of a misunderstanding for me that the windows were installed. If it's installed, then that means it's been final. And what I'm trying to say is that maybe the stucco wasn't down, or I don't know if they changed it or not. But I went through our file at the office when we got I didn't handle this project. One of my associates handled this thing, but I got the copies of the plan, whatever we had in our file, and I hope this is exactly the same that was permitted, or permit was issued on August 28, 2008. This plans that I have, it indicates fiberglass, even though it's not a stamp set, but this is what I have in my files. If there's something else, I wish that we could get a hold of those documents to clarify this thing, and maybe there was some correction that the plan checker wrote on it, but this is what I have from our file. It was handwritten. I can submit this to you. So that's what I'm asking, if it's possible. We waited this long. If we get another 2 more weeks, at least we can clarify this case and to proceed with the project and to come up with some sort of a solution or a resolution for this project.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Joe, you had something you wanted to say, sir?
Just to answer his question in regards to the building permit for the 160 square foot addition at the rear, the plans for that permit, because it was final, it had been retained, it is microfilmed. They were the exact same plans that you provided last week, which read the windows at the addition were to be fiberglass, double-hung windows, and the windows remaining on the other portions of the home, not part of the addition, were to remain wood and not be changed.
So it says that it was fiberglass.
Fiberglass double-hung.
Double-hung. But it indicated fiberglass.
That's correct. We're not disputing the material.
Okay. So because on our drawings, when we submitted for 18 new windows, our notes indicated that the new windows to match existing. So if you're changing the windows on 18 of them, the new one, because they match existing. If the existing is fiberglass and the type of window that they purchased from, let's say, the Home Depot, they try to match that window.
But were they purchased properly and installed properly as per plans? And I think the argument is that they were not. They were not originally as per plans.
But that's what we're disputing at this, because I don't know. I have no.
Okay. Thank you, sir.
I have a quick question.
Yes, sir.
Of course. No, of course.
On the east elevation, on the drawings that you showed us before, these two were called out for double hung, right? That's for approved in the 160 square foot.
I don't have the old one. This is another plan that I
remember the ones that you had brought last time. You said that.
I believe so. I think.
So why have they changed?
I don't know. I as I indicated, that one, but I don't know if it's double hung at the back or not.
The order here says horizontal sliders. So it would be the slider type.
Yeah, I think these are copies of the ones that...
Okay.
And so as approved, they were double hung for that addition as well, right?
I think if you take a look at the picture, it should have been double hung. Whatever it's in there, double hung, except one window on the side of it, which wasn't double hung. I provided you with the pictures last 2 weeks ago.
Let me find it real quick, sorry. It's a lot of pages.
Mr. Joe, is that the stamped set over here for the original 2008-0008?
That's correct. That's the building's copy, or microfilmed.
Yeah, so double hung right there. South elevation. This should be the street side, right?
Right, this one.
Okay, so according to these plans, basically the two windows that were on the east elevation and the one that's on the street side should all be double hung windows.
Yes, I think the two at the back should be double hung.
Right.
The one, they did not do double hung, it was just a slider. But based on a picture that I provided to you 2 weeks ago.
Right, but per plan, they're
Per plan, yes.
wrong.
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Joe, you had a question?
Oh, I just wanted to, I just received some photos from Neighborhood Services that he had taken at the time he had issued the correction notice for stop work order. It just shows what the property looked like at the time. Looks like majority of the home had already been installed with these windows as exhibited today, already all around the house. But perhaps you maybe want to take a look at that or not, but just wanted to add that.
What's the date of those photos?
Is there a timestamp on that?
7/24/08.
Okay, so it's number 4 on our chronological order of items. So July 24th was actually prior to the August 28th permit issuance.
How many windows were on the first permitted plans of the addition? Windows.
One, two, three, four.
On the first one?
4 new.
Okay. And you're saying, sir, if you can come back a quick second. I'm looking through this purchase order and getting a sense. It appears that the drawings say that there are 4 windows that were part of the addition that was permitted, correct?
Right.
And are you saying that those 4 windows cost $7,394?
No, I don't know the sliding doors.
With the slider?
Yes.
So you're saying the slider and those 4 windows cost $7,300?
You can't have cross.
Okay. Thank you, sir. Okay, thank you.
There's a new slider.
Yeah, there's a slider there. Okay.
So there's 4 windows and 1 slider
One
on the
slider.
original permit, 2008-008.
That's correct. Okay. Just to make sure I don't miss anyone, the next person requesting to speak is, and I may, because of the address, Armik Zalukanian.
It's underneath.
He's as the applicant? That would you be, please. Your name and address for the record, sir, please. If you, well, I'm sorry, when you get closer to the
Roma Kantaya, 1400 Highland.
Yes, sir.
Okay, I just want to go over one more time whatever happens with the window. Like, what happened is, when we got the permit for the rest of the windows, like Armik said, we requested to match the existing windows. And then They stopped the order, then we have to pull the permit again for the fiberglass windows. Then we did pull the permits, and I'm just explaining to you why is it finished right now, because we passed the first inspection, and then we called for the final inspection, and for the final inspection you finish everything basically to come and finalize basically. So that's what happened. We finished everything, and the inspector came to finalize the finalists, because we passed one or I think two inspections, because first you put the paper I think, and then the different stock one, then for the final. So when we called them for the final inspection, that's when it happened. Like they came and they said, we have to see this is not right or something, you know. That's why it looks right now finished. So when they stopped, we completely stopped, and then we pulled the permits, and we passed two inspections. On the final inspection, they said it's not right. That's why it looks like that. I'm just trying to explain.
That's cool.
And last time when I was speaking also, I don't know who was it, but said that for the windows we didn't buy the right one. But what happened is I went to Home Depot, and then they gave me all the papers. Before buying, I brought to the city, I showed to the city, and then they checked, and the material, the company, I forgot the company name, starts with M, I think, and they said, yeah, this is the right one, you could use this actually. That's why I went and also purchased the windows. That's the only reason I purchased those windows.
Very good, sir. Yes.
So you're saying that, just to go a little further back,
Yes.
the first edition that you did, the reason that these windows don't match the ones you put in is because
I did only one edition actually. I did only the back edition, and then, yeah.
Let's talk about that edition. The
Yeah.
four windows.
I passed that one completely. The inspector came, everything was
Right,
perfect.
no,
I
but
passed
the reason
completely.
the elevation windows don't match the ones that are out there now, you're saying is because you had brought something into the city for them to look
No,
at. Do you have any written
What
thing
happened
that
is,
says?
what happened is, when we finished this one, with the final inspection passed, then we came to the city. We only wanted to match the new windows that were going to change to the old ones, and that's how it looks right now.
Okay, I understand that part of it. Let's just go a little further back. The addition that you were doing,
Mm-hmm.
you went to the trouble of creating plans, you had
Mm-hmm.
elevations, you depicted what your windows were going to be and everything.
Yeah, I went to the Home Depot. I didn't purchase first. They gave me all the printouts, and I brought to the city. I want to make sure that's the right one, because they were not giving me any permits to change those. I mean, I had the house very done, but the window was not,
Right, but
not there.
why does it not match? That's my question.
See, that's what I'm saying. I brought to the city. The city said it's okay, and then we passed the
Do you have
final
anything
inspection.
that says that the city said okay?
Well, I have the final inspection. Everything
No,
is finalized.
that's after you put it in. Before you purchased, you said you came and talked to the city.
I don't have anything. Like, they didn't give me anything.
Can you remember who you spoke to?
Okay.
It's either him or another guy.
Okay.
His face is very familiar. It was like
Because
2
you
years
have to
ago.
understand, there's a process that
I'm
you have
not
to go
saying it was you.
through.
Your face is familiar.
If you're going to change those windows out to something else, there's a process we have to go through. And so we don't have any evidence of that process.
I understand, but my point is that if the windows were not okay, how come the inspector finalized it and everything was, you know what I mean? And,
Well,
and
we'll
it
get
was
to that, but I mean,
finalized, and we
that's-
wanted to only match to the
that's-
finalized windows. That's all we wanted
Okay,
to do.
I'm not going to. Okay, thank you.
I'm sorry.
If I could just ask a question
I
for
don't know how to
clarification. Item number 4 in history, on July 24, 2008, a correction notice and stop order was issued by Mr. Sada of Neighborhood Services. The windows that Mr. Sada saw there were not permitted and not approved. Mr. Sada, or there's an extension granted per Mr. Sada on August 7th to get the things up to date and get them permitted. But the windows are still there. They were in.
So it's almost like a fix-it ticket.
Right. They haven't done anything yet. And then on August 28th, they show drawings that show that they're going to remove and replace the 18 windows per plans. So my question, sir, is, have you ever removed the windows that gave you the stop order? When you got a stop order by
Yes.
Ms., you removed those
Well,
windows.
we came and we pulled permits.
Wait, that's not the question I'm asking. When Mr. Sada saw the windows that were installed without permit and issued a stop order, then you provided drawings to remove and replace those windows. Did you ever remove and replace those
That's what I
windows
was
that
gonna show you
caused the
this
stop
paper.
order? No, not the whole, just listen. Did you ever replace the windows that were originally given the stop order? Have you ever taken those windows?
It was never said taken out. It says stop order. Never said remove to me. And,
Well, permit here, as I read it here, says permit BB 208-80550 was to remove and replace the 18 windows, meaning those windows were not approvable
But then I got a
remove them or
permit.
replace them. Did you ever remove any of those windows that caused the stop
No, I
order?
didn't, but I got a permit for those windows.
So you just, nothing is, okay,
I
thank you,
haven't
sir.
removed
The
Okay,
drawings were
I
created
wanna show you this
match what
paper
he
to
put
our
in,
receipts.
to make it legalized.
Yeah.
That's basically what.
but, okay, thank you, sir. Yeah, yes.
Typically, when you're pulling a window permit, the work has been done. They will still label it under the project description as to remove and replace windows. So it's not indicative of the fact that they're removing the windows that were illegally placed and installed and then reinstalling something on top that's completely different. That would just solely be the project description, meaning whether or not these windows have already been replaced or the original.
In addition, just to clarify a little bit about, because we do these window replacement projects all the time, there are a number of pieces of information that we ask for. We ask for an elevation to show the configuration of the window, whether it's double hung, slider, what type of operation it is, what surround it has, does it have a sill, and then we also ask for a cut sheet that typically shows only the type of material that's used. Typically, that cut sheet will not clarify the operation configuration of the window. That is done on the drawings.
Okay, thank you. Okay, thank you, sir. The next speaker requesting, the person requesting to speak is Roma Calantenti. That was you? Okay. Okay, so you were not then Armic?
No, Armic Shutters, sorry.
Very good. I thought my signature was there.
It's all the cards there are, right? There's two.
There's two. There's two. Okay, but the names didn't jive up with me. Okay. Any other reasons to keep the public portion open? Okay. The public portion of the case is closed. And be respectful for your time, sir. Is there any questions you think we may have for the building inspector who already mentioned that he was on a tight schedule? Thank you for coming, sir. I know your days start early. Well, we're at the point where we wanted to hear the information that we did not have last week. And we're at the point where we have to feel and determine whether, with this information, we would want to debate it and try to decide what we feel, or whether we would want to extend and continue the case for another date certain in hopes that the applicant will provide, which they haven't been able to do, documents which may support their case. Why don't we discuss that for a little bit?
Well, we had this discussion 2 weeks ago, and I think there was some comments made that 10 days was ample amount of time for the applicant to come back with some material. I think that's one of your questions, is whether we want to extend more time. So shall we divide up our questions into an A and a B part? Maybe A is, and you could very quickly ask us for, do we think more time should be allowed? And then B is, and if more time should be allowed, then of course everything else is a moot point, and we just allow them more time. And if more time should not be allowed, then we could very quickly just elaborate on it, because we spent quite a bit of time on it last time. So that would be my take on it. But I'd be glad to hear what others have to say as well.
Do you have a sense of which way you would prefer?
I think this is one of those situations where if you have 2 more weeks or 4 more weeks or 6 more weeks, it's not going to make all that much of a difference. I didn't really hear the applicant ask for more time, saying, if he had more time, then he'd be able to get this paperwork. They've asked the contractor, and at this point in time, we don't know. We're spending a considerable amount of energy on this. So I think if we're continuing it, it should be for 30 days or something like that, where they really make an effort to find this contractor and get to the bottom of it. If not, I'm ready to opine on this case today, and I believe I have all the information that I need to make a decision. If I'm leaning one way or another, I just don't think it's worthwhile to extend this for longer periods of time because of the amount of energy that's being spent here. In other words, we have staff, we have senior building officials, Mr. Malice, everyone is just coming together to try to solve this. And if I thought that maybe one more month would help, I would certainly speak my mind as I did 2 weeks ago.
Thank you. Ms. Palmer, do you want to go next?
I think there's been an ample amount of time, discussion, people have been involved in discussing all this. I do note here that when things have been brought up to be corrected, extensions have been given over and over again. So I don't see that adding another extension onto this would help us, based on the chronological report that we have here and our discussions.
Thank you. Mr. Yu, any feeling?
I feel the same way. I think they've had enough time to put their case together. And just to reiterate what I was saying last time is that the people that are involved, the owner, the architect, the contractor, these are people that have been involved. The architect a little further later on, but they were the ones that prepared the drawings for the new 18 windows. Somebody needs to have a set that's approved. It doesn't just, you can't just throw your hands up and say no one's got it, And then if you do, then that's what we have to take into consideration. And so I'd say that they've had plenty of time to show us if there is something out there.
Okay. I would also concur. I think that given that it's, as you mentioned before, that it's one thing, it's the windows. It's not a handful of things which may be more difficult to gather information. I would concur that in this case, with what we've got before us, I would concur that we should not extend it and try to work through it right now and try to make a decision on it right now. So let's not do the extension, as I'm hearing here. I think we're all in unison with that. And why don't we go to the next step and hear this case, debate on the issues that we think are in front of us, and try to make a decision as a body as what we think should occur. Why don't we start again with you, Art? You want to do that?
Sure, I'll go ahead and start. Now, we've had several cases that have come up to our board in the past, say, 6 months or so, where some sort of discrepancy exists between what was approved and what was built. This is certainly one of the most pronounced examples, because we have a situation where someone spent an incredible amount of effort and time renovating windows in a house, and so we have a pretty big financial burden in front of us. I'm under the impression that we gave the applicant some time to come back with paperwork to prove the case, which, for whatever reason, it was unable to achieve that. And so when I look at the choices in front of us, it's either us to, say, replace the existing windows with hung fiberglass windows as was approved, or to, say, return for redesign where the applicant comes back with some sort of a design change, some sort of a remodel to the facade that would be more in line with the windows that have been installed. We have these craftsman style of windows that have been installed that are white. So it's a difficult challenge coming up with a style and a design that's going to work with these windows. Is it impossible? No. But that would be the direction, one of the two directions I would take, but I would more be inclined to give the applicant the opportunity to design a renovation of the building for it to work with the windows. Or the applicant could simply come back and say, I don't want to renovate it, and I'll just replace all the windows for the hung fiberglass windows as illustrated on the original permit 2008-0008. That's my take on it. I'm not going to elaborate and spend more time on it, but I'm just trying to cut to the chase, and that's my final thoughts on it.
Thank you, sir. Ms. Palmer, why don't we stay in the same sequence, if you don't mind?
I agree with Mr. Simonia's comments, and that the applicant has had the ample amount of time to present the information. I do notice all the plans have been presented. There are no dates on any of these plans, so I can't tell.
If I can just interrupt you for a second, forgive me, I think it's pertinent. I asked Mr. Joe to get me this. When the original permit was taken for the addition, the applicant filled out the application as owner-builder, which I suspected. There is no contractor, as many of these window changeouts are. At least from this document, it's an owner-builder changeout. So the documents that we think may be gotten from the general contractor, at least from this document, there was no general contractor recorded, no California license number, and it shows here owner-builder. So I think the whole effort may have been moot to see if there is a general contractor. At least these documents show that it was done owner-builder. Forgive me for interrupting you,
Okay,
because I
no,
think it would
that's-
be pertinent to the discussion.
I would have a tendency to agree that if we did give any time, that the applicant could come back with a design that would be appropriate to these windows, or they can have the opportunity to replace them, as was previously stated.
Thank you, Ms. Palmer. For you?
I think that's a good suggestion, Mr. Simonian, that they have the option to bring a design that would match the new windows that they put in. But as it stands now, I think there's enough that shows that the first windows that were put in that do not match the original approved plans for the double hung, and then later further elaborated throughout the house, it doesn't go with what was approved, and therefore, at this point, I would say we need to replace them out. But they do have the option to redesign the house to match those windows. That's up to them. That's where I would stand.
And I would concur. I would say that from the records that we have, from the effort, from what appears to be the intent, and from what appears to be the very first time with permit, the documents showed that they were going to install a certain type of window. And those were not installed. I think was the beginning of, I hate to say it, but misleading with the original intent. But having said that, I would concur that at this point they have the opportunity, as suggested, if they can design something or bring in something that would adequately fit those type of windows, or complete change out of all the windows of the project, which would never be something that we could approve, would be the way I would gravitate towards.
Yes, so that we can have some clarity, if they choose to redesign the facade to fit the windows. The windows that are shown have a Craftsman type design, interior mullions, no sills, and those typically when designs are brought before you, you very often make comments to consistency of detail and design with the overall project. So perhaps if there's an idea, if you could let us know if you think it's possible to provide a design that would make the windows fit, and if you have any suggestions to that, because based on what we've heard from the board previously, the house is a minimal traditional ranch type house that's very different from the Craftsman style. Their Craftsman suggested windows seems like a challenge. I'm wondering what the board feels about that.
Unless someone wants to. My feeling is that a big problem with the windows aren't necessarily the architecture that we may have to redesign to complement these type of windows. I believe it goes to a different point, that nail-on windows without sills is not something that we have been approving, and it's inconsistent with the quality of windows that we've been consistently reviewing and approving, and that is one key element over the years that has been a common thread through the approval process. Windows are a significant portion of the caliber and the neighborhood consistency, and that even if you then redesign the house with the craftsman style, the open timbering, the craftsman, it's still going to be poor windows that from the very beginning, if we had had this design submitted to us with this type of windows, we would have said, not approved. I think it's going to be quite a stretch and may give the wrong impression to the applicant that we have something to work with here, when in fact we have very little, if nothing, to work with. It would be a feeling that I'm running through my mind right now.
I think we need to give them that option, though. I mean, rather than just deny it and say put new windows in, there may be a way for them to come up with something, knowing that we don't normally approve anything of that nature, nail-on windows. If they can come up with something that would look appropriate, I think we give them that option.
I would agree as well, and the reason why, I had that viewpoint of giving you an opportunity to come up with a design that would work is we are talking about a substantial financial burden here. I mean, this is not a small item. And so you have a designer that certainly is capable and understands what we're looking at. He's been in front of this board many times. He knows exactly what is preferred by this board. And that's an option that we're giving him. These are hard economic times, and so that's the least we can do now. Just like 2 weeks ago when I stated 2 weeks goes by, a month goes by, it's not going to make a big difference to the city of Glendale or us or the applicant. We don't have a nuisance situation where, the front of a house is missing and there's transients that are in there in the evening. This is not a nuisance to the neighborhood. And so I would agree with the idea of giving them time and an opportunity to try to solve this issue. And that's completely up to you. And I started out, it's a challenge making this design work. But it's the choice that I think we could offer them at this point.
Well, it's an economical issue. I mean, you have to compare what scenarios you're going to put in, and if changing out the look of the house is going to cost you more than changing out the windows, then that's the option you choose. It's up to you.
I would concur. So why don't we see if we can just have a couple points that we want to establish, do it for staff. I think there'll be a couple key points, and see if we can bring it to a vote. So why don't we just, Dave, why don't you take this note, and this will be what we want.
Actually, Mr. Dennis Joe is the case planner.
Oh, sorry, Joe.
If you don't mind.
Mr. Joe, sorry. It's just so we see Dave all the time. Mr. Joe, okay, what would be the first thing we want? And you can you can paraphrase in what we want. I'll start. Nail-on windows of the type installed. Would be required to be architecturally enhanced in such a way to make them in such a way that would match the style of window
And the motif of the house.
and the motif of the house, consistent with the surrounding neighborhood. Which would require a resubmittal for design review to review that submittal. Would that be correct? It'd be a submittal which would require a new DRB submittal?
It depends on how the board wishes to proceed. You can either vote to return for redesign, at which point the applicant either comes back with modifications for the existing windows or a new plan for new windows, or you can deny the project, which would require a new design review board submittal regardless, whether they keep the windows and modify them or replace them, or you can approve with conditions and say, change out the windows. If you do not change out the windows, you have the option of then returning to the board as a new case with a modified elevation plan for the project.
Well, If I remember correctly, we had an issue a few weeks ago where a case was returning for was a return for redesign, and they had to submit a new application fee anyways.
You would have to submit regardless.
So whether it's a return for redesign or a rejection, they would have to submit a new submittal fee to the city.
The one option would be if you chose to approve with conditions and required the applicant to return with a window upgrade, changing up essentially all of the 18 windows with, a wood sill on the bottom or within a wood frame and specified, the window material and type, then that would be an approval with conditions. And if they did not wish to do that, then they have the option of coming back with revised elevation, with a revised proposal.
Yeah, that might give the applicant the most flexibility. If you were to, say, approve with conditions, with specifics about what you would be looking for, and we've heard a little bit about this this time and last time, quality double-hung windows that are recessed with a sill, for example, which is the kind of windows that you are typically asking for. Then you can approve with those very specific conditions, and then the applicant can work with staff and they wouldn't be required to come back to you. If your decision is a return for redesign, the applicant is required then to come back to you, and then you have if they come back within 6 months, then you can approve with conditions or deny at that point. At that point. So it's obviously for you to decide which way to go.
Are there any time frames within this?
Now, again, as Stephanie mentioned, if you return within 6 months, if it's a return for redesign, it's considered a second submittal for final review. If you approve it with conditions, again, they just need to meet the conditions. At this point in time, denying it would not be an option, since it is a first-time submittal for final review.
Can I add, to add another dimension here? This is a city attorney case. I don't know if they have 6 months, and how can we coordinate this with city attorney to?
That's true too.
I would suggest that we make a recommendation that is basically they need to change out the windows, and at that point they can make their own choice on how they want to go. There's already a process in place where if they would have gone and changed out the 18 windows per their application, we wouldn't be here. And so let them go through that course. It's already set up for that. If that's the way they want to go, change out the 18 windows through the process that the planning department has. What? Go ahead.
Essentially, there is a process if they were to go ahead and go through the design review board exemption, but because they are trying to legalize windows that staff feels that cannot be design review board exempt, that is the reason why why we are here.
So if we say change out the windows, we have to tell them what they're changing it out to, or can they just submit new plans to change out?
You can ask them to work with staff to get the windows to a point which we can go ahead and approve.
So they have to go through that. They can't just go through the regular counter process.
No, they would be working actually with our urban design staff.
Okay.
Clarification, if we were to say replace the windows with fiberglass hung windows as approved in the 2008 case, then would that be an open and shut case where the applicant could go away, replace the windows with the hung fiberglass as approved in the 2008 160 square foot addition and come back, and at that point in time they wouldn't have to do anything else to the building, correct?
Correct. Now, provided that unless you have additional conditions such as providing a wood sill or a wood surround or recess.
Then I would maybe suggest this sort of a condition. We say applicant to either replace the existing windows with fiberglass hung windows per the east elevation as indicated in the 160 square foot addition 2008-0008, or at the sole discretion of the applicant for them to return for redesign. Now, we need to clarify the city attorney case to see how long that would take. If they come back in 30 days, 60 days, is that okay? And that's something that we can't figure out over here, and we need direction from staff.
Again, that you wouldn't be able, as part of an approval with conditions, you would not be able to require at the applicant's consideration to have them come back for return for redesign. It would be essentially filing a new case, which that's what they would be doing regardless.
If you approve it, they will have an approval that will be good for 2 years.
I see. Which doesn't work with...
I don't know what the city attorney will do with that, because they will have 2 years to get a permit.
And so if we say replace the windows, and that's it,
then that is your final decision, and they can either file a new case or file an appeal to the city council.
okay. And if they file a new case, it would be based on whatever they decide.
They could come in and say, you know, we had an approval for these windows. We had an approval because you told us to change out the windows to a different style. We are choosing not to do that. We are choosing to do something to the house that will make these windows more palatable to you as a board. And then you can review that case.
Which would be a brand new case.
It would be a brand new case. So, fitting the city attorney into all of this, I mean, again, the goal is always compliance. I'm sure the city attorney would agree with that. But I'm not going to speak for the city attorney as to what they will do or how they will adjudicate a case based on a decision. Again, if you say it's approved with the fiberglass windows that you're talking about, then it's approved. That's it. It's over. It's appealable, but it's good for 2 years. I don't know what the city attorney, what that does to their case. I can't speak to that.
Can't we give a time frame for when the windows would have to be replaced by?
The code says that they have design review board approval for 2 years.
Yeah, and I think that we would be going beyond our bounds.
Go back to the original proposal we had,
Which
is the option.
Which is what Art was saying.
Yeah.
my fear is that
Yeah, again, and I'm sorry to interrupt.
No.
We're sort of caucusing here, trying to, and again, we're not trying to dictate the outcome here. That's certainly up to you. But I think the shortest distance between 2 points here is to approve it with the windows that you want and say it's approved. And then it's up to the city attorney at that point to decide, do we want to continue on? And then they have 2 years to get a permit. I mean, unless the city attorney decides to prosecute them under this case.
That, I think, is the simplest approach in this very complex case, is to say, replace the windows
type that we want to approve.
with the fiberglass hung windows as illustrated in 2008-008. Now, at that point in time, you could appeal that, or you could submit something under a new case.
Another 2 years.
But then it's up to the city attorney
And
to try to enforce it.
and we've made our, we've done, if you will, the limit of what is prudent for us to do. What do we feel is about an architectural design review board, what we would like to see there? And then that then establishes what we want, what we believe as a board, our task. And then whether they have 2 years, 2 months, 6 months, and if it's an attorney issue,
That's not our job.
that's not our.
That's not really, the purview here of what you're trying to accomplish. You're trying to decide what's the best outcome for the design of this house.
You can just see how I believe that it would be hard pressed to have windows of this type that we have consistently not approved be altered, be adjusted, added sills, added surrounds, added this and that, to sidings. The windows are not something that that's the case, we don't approve the windows. I think if we give clear, as Mr. Mooney is saying, what we have, replace the windows as per the original design, with fiberglass, double-hung windows, true divided lights, with sill. We stop there. And that's, yes, Mr. Joe.
Just to remind you, on the original staff report, staff did offer 3 recommendations or conditions that you may either to adopt or you can strike them out. But number 1 was replacement windows for the entire home should consist of recessed placement, single or double hung windows constructed of quality material such as wood, wood-clad aluminum, and fiberglass. The second condition is a simple external horizontal mutton pattern may be at each window or no mutton should be applied at all. And the third one is wood frames and sills should be returned to each opening.
These elevations do not indicate sills on the existing side. Was there any pictures that indicate to us that there were existing sills on this building at some point in time?
Or
We had pictures of, yes, we had pictures of the
That
previous.
illustrate sills, wood sills?
They had that Google picture that indicated the sills on all the windows.
Okay.
We've never to rush anything, but to just try to,
I think you're right. I think we've overthink this.
yeah.
Overthought it.
In hearing Mr. Joe's review of their case, original staff recommendation, I would believe that item number 1 spelled it out pretty clear. And why don't you say it one more time?
Condition number 1, the replacement windows for the entire home should consist of recessed placement, single/double hung windows constructed of quality material such as wood, wood-clad aluminum, or fiberglass.
That's what I believe we should be.
I have a question, though. No, go ahead.
And I think we might have a similar question.
Yeah, I don't... Go ahead. I'll let you say it.
I'm not sure it's possible to create recessed windows in this existing framing. I mean, they might get an inch at most, because any window is going to be about 2 1/4 inch. So the framing is going to be about 3 1/2 inches. So they're going to get maybe an inch at most.
I think perhaps what staff may be describing, if we have a double hung window, that recessed nature is at the bottom, the bottom.
Because it's on the back side.
It's on the back
Previous
side.
ones just had a
Yeah,
small.
it does that.
Yeah, it's going to be an inch, inch and a half. We're not
Thing was-
talking about upgrading the framing is
No,
what I
right.
want to emphasize.
My concern is that I think we should just leave the language so that whatever we say that can go back to is the approval of that, instead of adding any new conditions to it. I think it loses all
Yeah.
validity if we start adding all this stuff to it.
So this is which was
We should
the
stick with
original
what-
intent.
Whatever
This
the
was
city approved for
approved.
that is what we
Let's go
approved,
with
right?
it, yes.
So-
I agree.
And that would be with what you stated in your first comment?
No, it's different.
If that
different.
coincides
That's-
with what's approved, yes, but if not, then I say we
That's
go
the
with what
second
we
drawing,
have.
so those appear to be.
That one
Yeah,
has
the,
sills, the original.
if I recall, the notes on that particular drawing did say to match the previously existing windows, which our understanding had the sill and the wood frames around it. So what we tried to do in our recommended conditions is to be, in words, much more precise than the drawings indicated, to match existing, since at that time, back in January 2008, the original windows still existed. They no longer exist, so we need a little bit more specificity in the condition is what we would recommend.
Okay, as long as it matches what we're agreed upon, as they agreed upon with the city.
Yeah, I don't believe that the conditions that Mr. Joe read back to you represent any change or upgrade from what was approved in 2008.
Yes, Mr. Joe.
I guess kind of looking at the history of this, because the addition at the 160 square foot addition at the rear had been finalized with these windows, I guess staff could reword it to say that the replacement windows for the house should consist of recessed placement, and kind of let the ones that had been finalized with that part of the addition, let them be. I guess it's just the 18 windows
Right.
should be conditioned.
That won't work, because if you let them be, you've got 2 windows that face the street that would be different than what we were requesting. You'd have 2 of the Craftsman
Yeah.
deal on with
No, I mean, Mr. Malis may disagree, but the windows on the side elevation that were incorrectly placed, you can ask that those be changed to what they were originally permitted for.
Okay. And then,
I'm sorry, what was originally permitted for? Do we have, because there was some drawing that we had 2 weeks ago that had an elevation of what was permitted.
It's in there.
it's in there. The windows that are, the location of the windows.
Do they have buttons or are they
No.
clear?
Well, the original drawings and the language of the original plans that were approved are not the windows that we see here.
Okay.
They had divided, double-hung, vinyl-clad, with sill windows. They didn't install them that way.
Okay.
So what the feeling now is that the ones, these are the, here we go.
It's one page before that. It shows that.
Proposed.
1, 2, 3, and 4.
So the feeling is none of these windows were ever installed as per plan and a permit.
And there's a note here someplace, I remember reading something down here. All new windows
Right.
to be double-hung fiberglass windows from Milgard manufacturer. All existing windows to remain wood existing windows.
Right.
And so all we have to do at this point is say if they're clear double-hung, or do we want divides in there? So clear would be more,
If they were bringing this project to us, we would say no divided.
no divide.
Right.
And the old windows didn't have dividers.
Doesn't seem to have divides from the Google
All right, so
pictures,
let's-
although they're grainy pictures.
So let's see if we can. Grainy. So let's see if we can get this thing buttoned up. Let's summarize what we would want. So, someone jump in and Mr. Joe.
Replace windows with fiberglass hung windows with no divides.
Of
The-
quality.
From Milgard.
Or equal.
Equivalent.
Or equivalent. And maybe we could do a quick 1, 2, 3, 4 vote if we want to make them replace the rear ones that were already approved and finalized.
I would say we should, in my opinion.
So yes,
The entire house can be seen, so I would say yes.
I struggle with that one.
me too.
Just because I know that inspectors are not supposed to be perfect, but that's something they should have caught. I would be okay with the one facing the street, but the rest they want to keep. I don't know.
I would also agree. What was finalized was finalized. That permit is over. And so I would agree with Mr. Yu. Let's keep the 3 existing windows on the east side plus the sliding door and replace all windows on the south, west, and north elevations.
Okay?
It's only fair.
So why don't we read back, Mr. Joe, that?
So I have a condition that replacement windows along the south, west, north elevations shall be with Milgard or equivalent quality fiberglass hung windows.
Says here
No
double
buttons.
hung.
Double hung windows with no buttons.
Do these windows have sill?
Well, as I mentioned before, they're noted to match existing. The original openings had wood sills and wood frames.
And will, and shall include.
If I could interject. I'm personally don't think the wood seals are going to make that much of a difference on this. And so I would say replace the windows, but not make the applicant put in wood seals. But I'd like to hear what the rest of the board would have to say about that.
I mean, from my experience, don't they they have sills that are integrated with the that they can get. It doesn't necessarily have to be the
Then
wood.
that would work out fine.
Yeah, because they can create casing and all the
Right.
surrounding. Like
But as far as the true wood sills that go into the side, where they have to cut the framing and redo it, I think that's just an exuberant amount of work to go through it.
And the window type shall include a sill,
Integrated wood
sill.
wood sill into the
It
window.
has the look of what was existing before.
Okay, excellent. Okay, and our option then with that.
So that's a sill and wood sills and frames that have a similar look to the original windows.
The original windows of the home, okay. And our options right now, if we went with that requirement, would be what again?
Approve with this condition.
And what the vote would be, approve with this condition.
Right.
Okay.
Changing out.
I mean,
Now, again, you can return for redesign and have them bring it back to you, but that would be essentially a brand-new application.
No.
So,
That's up to them.
okay.
Okay,
Okay, should I read back the conditions to make sure I got everything?
sure.
One condition.
One condition? Okay. Replacement windows along the south, west, and north elevations shall be with Milgard or equivalent quality fiberglass double-hung windows with no muttons, and shall include sills and frames that
And shall include integrated wood sills into the window frame.
At the end, no, just sill, not wood.
It's sills and frames that match or are similar to the look of the original windows.
So Sir Joe, when you're ready, let's do it one more time.
they're match or similar, I'm sorry.
Replace windows, replacement, well, let's see. Replace the windows and provide sills and frames similar to the look of the original windows of the home.
Can we put at the end of that basically we're requiring them to put it back to the original submitted and approved drawings of just to
I'm sorry, can you repeat that again?
the approved drawings that we have here? Let's put that at the end that says that it's all based on this.
But the problem is the approved drawings don't show windows that we're requesting right now. They show,
The sill portion of it.
Well, would be happy to add, and I think it's consistent with what you're asking for, that the
for the city, yeah.
that the intent of the board is to provide windows as approved with the January 2008 permit BC 2008-0008. That we can say that's the intent, and all of the other pieces describe what
Yes.
what was included in those drawings.
Right. Thank you.
Should I just call a roll call, or should I clarify the condition?
I think we need to have a,
A motion and a
Right.
second.
oh,
I make a motion for our long-winded condition that we have.
So it's an approve with that condition, right?
these are the plans that were approved, right?
Right.
Okay. The windows that are approved here show divided light. So if we're saying that they're undivided at this time, if I remember correctly, it would be inconsistent with what we...
That's true. You're right.
So we don't want to
I
reference
think we
these
should
drawings.
stick with what, the similar windows to the original windows.
As
Not
Ms. Reich
include
was
the
saying,
plan
I would concur.
So I think what
Take it
Mr.
back.
Joe has read back said double-hung windows with no muntins. Would you want to give the applicant a choice to provide muntins or not muntins? And
That's fair.
That's fine, because I would lean towards whatever they have here. So.
And I would say, with the muttons as being said, no.
Go.
And we should be clear that there should be external divided muntins. Okay.
If it says that here. Because we have to stick to, I mean, these were approved drawings that they could have gone by. I mean, why throw in all this stuff now? I mean, I know we can, but I don't think we should.
Yeah, we don't want to weigh in on anything more than,
You know what I mean? I don't
Yeah.
want to.
I mean, we don't approve internal muntins anyway, so that would have been what we would have done, or what would have been done at the time. We always do external divided muntins.
But those were approved without going through design reviews.
Right.
I guess, again, with the exemption, we don't do this anymore. It's not our practice because we're asking for more precise language than we did in the past just for this reason. In the past, when it was stated on the plans to match existing, the assumption was made that if there are muntins on the existing original windows that are external muntins, that those would be matched for the new windows, that we would never have anticipated that if there's a note saying windows to match existing, that they would provide internal muntins for those new windows. So I think it's safe to say if muntins are provided, they should be external muntins.
Okay.
Should we even include the muntin pattern, the single horizontal?
No, whatever they have in the drawing. They're showing they're showing vertical and horizontal ones, so that's what they would choose to go with.
But would we want to exhibit a craftsman-style muntin pattern, though?
No. They're not showing a craftsman style.
Okay.
Basically, those drawings with sills.
Yeah, let's go with these. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, read the condition back?
I think we
Or
got
do we
it.
have a
I think we got it. The two of us
Okay.
can put our heads together and make sure that we have it precisely.
All righty. Why don't we,
There's a motion made by Board Member Yu, so...
it's been made, the motion?
It's been made by Board Member Yu. No, there has to
I
be a
second.
second.
Okay, I have a motion by Board Member Yu and a second by Board Member Palmer. This will be roll call. Board Member Palmer?
Yes?
Board Member Simonian?
Yes?
Board Member Yu?
Yes.
Mr. Chair Nsua?
Yes.
And we have Board Member Aliano absent. We have a 4-0 vote to approve the application with one condition, which we'll iron out and...
With one or several conditions, depending upon what's the most clear and precise.
All right. Why don't we take a 3-minute break? You're in charge.
Okay, we're back on.
Okay, we're back to read the next case.
Would you like me to do
Ready?
so?
I'm going to read the next case. I can do that.
You're welcome to.
All right, the next case is 1 PDR 2010-003B. The address is 1439 East Colorado Street. And we're ready for staff presentation.
Thank you, Chairman and Select Board members. This case is a return for redesign that was last heard by the Design Review Board on March 18th, 2010. Board Member Palmer, you, and Simonian were present. Board Member Insua was not. The board voted to return for redesign with 9 conditions. This is the second submittal for final review. The project summary involves the remodel of an existing one-story 1,446 square foot commercial building and an addition of approximately 780 square feet to the front and side, and a new 12-car surface parking lot to the rear. This particular project is currently undergoing renovations in terms of tenant improvement on the interior, so the Design Review Board would allow them to continue with the proposed project and the addition. Now, in terms of site plan, I'm just going to go really briefly through the major points in the staff report, which would be in regards to site plan, mass and scale, and architectural design, and then I'll head straight to the 9 comments that were made by the Design Review Board. Site planning, it basically consists of maintaining the existing building that you see here located and adding the square footage to the front and to the side. It provides a new 12-car surface parking lot. The landscaping is proposed around the perimeter of the project site. Given that the project is then brought a little bit closer to the street front in response to the urban design guidelines, staff feels that this is an appropriate site plan for the particular project, with having the parking located to the rear of the building at the street level to create more of an interactive street frontage. Regards to mass and scale, there was an existing one-story commercial building. Essentially, it's going to remain a one-story commercial building, a medical office, and therefore, in terms of mass and scale, it fits within the 1, 2, and sometimes 3-story commercial offices and commercial retail spaces along Colorado. Last but not least, the architectural design. It's going to be a rather contemporary building, storefronts, smooth stucco finishes, high clean lines, geometric an emphasis, and so as such, it's appropriate for somewhat of a mixed neighborhood of architectural styles. Now, in terms of the board's comments, the first comment was to raise the lower sill height of all lobby windows on the on the front and side elevations. If you recall, the board had discussed, well, what happens if there are sofas inside the front lobby? And so the board requested that the window sills be raised. As you can tell here in the front elevations, they have been raised so that none of the interior furniture could be seen from the street. Second comment was to provide a shading device or extend the projecting fascia band canopy along the south front facing elevation and around the southwest corner of the building. Again, you'll notice here, previously, there was just a very minor lip all around the front elevation, which is essentially the lobby. Here they have increased the width up to 30 inches as requested by the Design Review Board, so that it is more of a shaded canopy structure for the lobby and the windows in the lobby. Third item was to clad the projecting fascia band across the front elevation and the window surrounds on the east and north elevations in material rather than stucco. The projecting window surrounds may be substituted with a flat metal framing detail. You'll notice here, particularly on the east elevation, which is only several feet from the property line directly adjacent to a 2-story commercial building, they had essentially a rectangular frame around it that was in stucco. That type of framing detail, you'll notice, has been removed completely, and so now there's just a simple aluminum frame around the windows as opposed to the projecting rectangular frame. Fourth item was to consider cladding the main front entry piece with a different material, such as corrugated metal, or painting the front entry in an accent color. It has been done. This would be more of an somewhat of an accent feature. You'll notice here, these were the incorrect drawings. We were unable to locate the correct color scheme, but it has been painted. Due to the cost constraints, the applicant and the property owner elected not to proceed with cladding this in all aluminum metal. Fifth item was to change the color palette to be more contemporary to match the style of the building, but also still compatible with the surrounding commercial context. I'll bring these up. The color palette you noticed before was more of a brown and tan with white. In order to jazz up the building, make it a little bit more contemporary, the applicant has elected to proceed with sort of a wine barrel color and a pismo, which is essentially a yellow. So this would be the revised color sample. There was a lot of discussion regarding colors at the last meeting. And typically we don't do this, but the color, there are two other color.
We have options.
Yeah, there are options. So if the board is not partial to this wine and yellow, there were suggestions made also for somewhat of a lime green.
Pistachio.
Pistachio, yes, thank you. And then a sugar berry as well.
Sugar berry.
Okay. Sixth comment was to incorporate the following changes to the landscape plan. One was to revise the native drought-tolerant plant palette to be more complementary to the color palette and architectural and style building. The board member Palmer took a look. They have much more of a muted tone towards the whites now, so that has been, accents of yellow and white to complement the exterior color palette of the building. The second part of that same condition was to change the type of the proposed parking lot trees to a species that is not as tall or widespread when mature. The trees have been modified from the aristocratic pear, which is typically 35 to 40 feet tall. Those have been changed to crepe myrtles, which typically are at 25 feet. And the last part to that particular condition was to provide bubblers for the irrigation system to replace the sprinkler system. And you'll notice here that the bubblers have been proposed all around for the irrigation. Comment number 7 was to provide a minimum 5.5-foot high decorative masonry wall on the interior property line. This would be the required 5.5-foot wall along the south and a portion of the east property line. They've come back. They are going to propose a decorative masonry wall that is of tan color blocks with a horizontal band of textured blocks, which will complement the color palette. Eighth item was to locate the future signage area on the elevation plan. If possible, depict the type of signage proposed. Again, because this is a one-tenant space, a sign program is not required. A sign program is only required when you have 2 or more tenants. So, they're not required to show signage, but they are providing, they said it would be very simple lettering on the front elevation. This is just an example of where that's proposed. Last but not least, locate all required equipment, backflow preventers prior to submittal for plan check, and that will be done along with staff. So, based on the items that have been addressed, first, the board's comments, and because of the site plan, the massing and scale, and the architectural plan, staff essentially recommends approval with several conditions, just 2 actually in this case. One would be to submit a lighting plan. We just want to make sure that it's a consistent contemporary lighting plan and it doesn't spill over into any adjacent properties. And 2 would be to locate the required equipment, backflow preventers, etc., prior to submittal for plan check. I'm available to answer any questions you may have. And the designer, the contractor are both in the audience, as well as the property owner. And the property owner is actually going to be the dentist who is going to be occupying the building. So I just wanted to make that up.
Is this perspective that we have for the second submittal?
The perspective you have is for the second submittal, yes.
But it's not correct.
It's
though.
not. They were saying the
These
same
brows
thing.
would be protruding out
That's
more.
what I was going to say.
Sorry, then yes. Okay, this was correct, but the brows are going to be clad in aluminum, so they would
But
be...
they're back from the face, and they're not projected out the 30 inches.
They would stick
as
out a
they're
little.
They would stick out beyond here.
They would stick out a little bit like that, so correct. It might be just a minor glimpse.
Yeah, it's just shown right
in
here. Yeah, it's
in the...
But they are going to project.
They are going to project, and that's shown actually on the site. I believe it's also shown on the site plan and in the elevation set. Specifically, they extended that brow 30 inches. Any other questions?
There was some discussion about some sort of vines on the west elevation.
Thank you, Board Member Simonian. Board Member Palmer mentioned, how about creating a little landscaping strip along the driveway to sort of soften that look of that side massing scale. You'll notice here, this is essentially a handicap ramp that leads to the front lobby from the parking lot. And in order to sort of soften that, and also to reduce the amount of paving along in the driveway because it was rather wide, the applicant has returned and is proposing to have a little landscaping cutout with climbing vines, so that wall, this particular building frame wall, will be softened, and that would address the landscape, one of the landscaping conditions. So
it would just grow on the stucco then?
I believe they're proposing perhaps to have some sort of, I don't know if it's a climbing vine or I think, if Board Member Palmer, correct me, it's right here.
Patasporum tobirin, something green.
Do we know how wide that is?
I'm assuming it looks to be about a foot to 18 inches wide.
We might want to change this because that's what they propose is a big shrub.
Is a big shrub? Okay.
I don't think it's a major
We can
problem.
take that as a condition or a comment from the board. Any other questions? Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Is this what we're talking about?
They didn't update their plans.
Oh, okay. That's
I think I know the answer, but I'll ask anyway. Is this something that we want to open, or is this something that we have enough information in front of us where we can say, follow the conditions that you did, fine, but make sure this is this way, this is that way?
Are there any new conditions? Staff is recommending approval, but are there any conditions that they're recommending at this
Yeah,
point?
two, but they were more technical things, yeah.
They were more technical.
Okay.
And if you'd like to add any other additional ones.
Color palette.
Okay. So the conditions that staff is recommending are,
Well, they submitted
okay,
this one.
those three.
Correct. And you're welcome to go ahead, and if these colors,
This one?
if you like to change these colors can be changed as well.
That's really
Can I see the middle one, the green one? Thank you.
Yeah, I think that's more attractive. I think this yellow over here.
Actually, the yellow one of the original submittal for the first-time submittal, we discussed that particular front elevation and elevation drawings are not representative of the color board, and so it's the color board that you should take a look at rather than
So
the front.
this color board is not,
This color board that you have in front of you, yes, that Board Member Palmer is holding, would be the colors of the building, not the proposed colors shown on the
I like
elevation.
that.
Because unfortunately, printers are not always accurate.
I'm all right with not opening the case. I think we've seen quite a bit of improvement from last time, and so I would just maybe comment on a few of the colors. But if there are some cards out there, I think we have to open it, right? Are there any cards?
Yes.
Speaker request.
There's
I see that it's already open.
Lure?
Well,
Well, in
I
the
guess yes,
sense
for
that-
presentation, if you'd like, you can ask if there's anyone in the
Okay.
public who wishes to speak. If there is no one who wishes to speak, then you can continue.
Well, I've got two speaker cards here, and you can see where my option was for our commissioners, if they're comfortable with the presentation and the submittal that you provided, and it appears that they're comfortable with us suggesting or directing a color palette, and maybe adding an item or two that Ms. Palmer might be suggesting or clarification for planting and landscaping. Would you want to come up and speak, or would you want to? And I promise, if during this process you have a question, you're more than welcome to come up, and I'll invite you to come up. But is there anything you'd like to speak? And I'll just say, Angelito Vitong. Oh, please. Okay. In that case, why don't we let's do this? Why don't we have a speaker, please? Applicant owner, Mr. Angelito Vitong. Please, sir. Your name and address for the record, sir.
Angelito Vitug, 12103 Luis Avenue, Granada Hills, California, 91344.
Thank you, sir.
I figured I drove here already, I might as well speak. Just a couple of things, really. The owners of the property asked me to come by just to impress upon the board a couple of issues, a couple of things. First of all, I think that with the changes that they've already made, it shows their willingness to comply with whatever the board recommends, providing that it is within what they can afford economically. And that I said that because the project is going to be funded through a construction loan that's already been approved, and they've already set up an amount of money that is to be spent on this project. And that being said, the owners are not of capacity to go any more above and beyond what the approved loan amount is. And secondly, the time constraint with that the owners are faced with. She will be ending her lease in her current clinic right now, and for a prolonged. This is going to be a quite long process of getting this constructed, and with that, she will be faced with a dilemma of not having a clinic to go to because she wouldn't want to have to sign another lease on the current location that she's in right now. She want to be able to move into this. I think that's pretty much it, really.
Thank you, sir. Any questions for the applicant? Thank you, sir. Our next speaker.
Just for clarification, I believe that was a representative for the applicant. The applicant a representative for the owner, not the owner itself.
Yes. Okay, and our next speaker would be the designer. He's available for questions. I don't know. Alberto Cisneros. Yes. Please, sir, your name and address, please, for the record.
My name is Alberto Cisneros. My address is 5318 East Wallow Road, Long Beach, California. I am the designer for this project. I have a partner that's an architect and structural design licenses. And this project was in conjunction when the doctor and Lycan Construction or tried to took the old building, include for new remodel, interior remodeling and exterior remodel too. This building was a try to make geometry, clean lines, and the surrounding around the buildings for choose the colors for this project. The first time was wrong for me. The different colors in the wall and different colors on the board. Right now I have a couple of options from the colors.
Thank you, sir. Any questions for the designer?
Are we specifying windows on this plan?
They are aluminum storefront windows.
I mean, is it specified? I don't see it.
It would be I believe it was specified on.
Maybe I'm not seeing
On
it.
the side elevation, right?
Correct.
Actually, I have a question for staff.
Yes.
A3.
Can we approve
Sheet A3 at
this
the
project
bottom.
with the site plan and floor plan not correctly reflecting the 30-inch overhang?
Is it
They only show it on the elevation.
on the elevation?
Is
So
that
what we
good
can,
enough?
what we can, yes, and what we can do is we can put that as a condition of approval
Okay.
to ensure that 30-inch overhang is depicted on the site plan.
Okay.
Any other questions for the applicant?
Did you find the window?
It's on A3 at the material legend section at the bottom
Oh,
right,
I
number
got it.
6.
Got it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Cisneros.
Okay.
Thank you, sir. Okay, why don't we close the public portion of the case? Why don't we do, anyone want to speak up? No given order? I think it's pretty straightforward. And
Yeah, go ahead.
I was just going to say, I think the improvements and suggestions that we had made earlier, I think they've been accomplished. I still note some of these, that the plans need to reflect what's happening, because the colors noted here are I think, the old colors on the plan.
And actually, what I'd like to do, and forgive me, this is something, the plans actually were sent out last Wednesday, and the corrected versions came in on Thursday. So I apologize, your packet has the incorrect versions. If
Okay.
you'd like, I'd be more than happy to pass it out. I didn't want to create too much
Is the
emphasis
rendering
on.
updated on that one?
Yes, there are no revised perspective drawings,
Or just the elevations?
but just the elevations. There you go. So these came in after your packets had been already sent out.
Okey-doke.
Thank you.
My other comment would be that area where on the driveway side where they've got the plantings of the pittosporum, I would suggest, just because it's going to overgrow and cause a problem, they could just change those to the agapanthus, and that way, because you're going to get a lot of dust and through there, so I would just change that to the agapanthus. And I appreciate that the owner looked at the plant material that's existing out there and changed the trees to what matches the school as well as the street trees. And the other plantings seem to be fine. I think that's it.
I just have a few points there. There can be suggestions, not conditions, but just to try to improve a little bit on it. Signage, I think maybe you might want to consider here. You're not going to be able to see this with the 30-inch projection. You're not going to be able to see it from this side or on the street. You'll have to be clear across on the other side to see it. So maybe find another place for that. The sort of the two planes that come together here, it's kind of clumsy because you have a 6-inch projection as it comes out of the brow. Resolve that somehow, make it better, because it loses its hierarchy of this being sort of the prominent versus that.
I'm sorry, for clarification, I did not see where you were pointing, Board Member Yu, so I apologize.
In here.
Okay.
So.
And so your comment was they wouldn't be...
Right now, it's sort of this piece, and then these are sort of secondary to it. As these things come out 30 inches, it's going to project 6 inches into that plane, so you're going to have this little thing that sticks out like this, which is going to eat away at whatever this is supposed to be. So I just say resolve that, the best you can.
So is your recommendation that it should be flush with the plane or pulled back with that entry?
It's up to them, figure it
Okay, so flush or pulled back.
I kind of missed those surrounds on that. I think it takes away from what was going on there. I think the suggestion was to try to use that material here, even if it's really thin, to try to do it. But I would like to see it come back. It's a recommendation.
Actually, I had a discussion with the applicant and the designer, and because putting the framing detail around all of the windows clad in metal was somewhat cost prohibitive based on their finances. So that's why they came back without having them. If you wish, we can go ahead and put it back as stucco or whatever the board chooses, because again, this is the board. It's not, DRB isn't based on finances, but that was the discussion that we had.
Yeah, I don't know. I guess I'd be okay with it if that's what I mean, those are the only comments. I think that's as far as this project's going to go with. Color-wise, I'm okay with the USC color one, I guess.
I'm sorry, which board?
The yellow and brown one that they have. Or
So the one submitted for design review board.
We'll make it as an exhibit.
Okay.
I actually have one question, and Steph might be able to answer this. The material on the brow, the metal material, do we have any samples of it? Do we know what color it is?
I believe it's just a very thin aluminum, and it looks like it was not included on the...
There's nothing here.
It was clear anodized aluminum. It was actually written down as on the elevation drawings, but no, it does not appear that we have a color sample.
So the material legend states that Trespa Meteon panels, invisible fixing with adhesive, and there's a panel TS450, and so that's at aluminum.
Yeah, that's a color similar to the aluminum based on what they're showing.
Trespa's not a metal, though. Is it?
Come again?
Trespa's not a metal.
I'm not familiar
it's like
with
a plastic.
Trespa. Yeah.
Yeah, that's not a metal.
We could.
It's almost like a solid formica kind of thing.
Which wouldn't wear well at all
Trespa.
in an exterior setting. So that's something that, well, I'll get to that in a second. So I concur with the board members. The project is a simple project, and it's come quite a bit from the initial submittal. A couple of comments that I would suggest is item number 6 in the material legend on the now A4 that's presented to us. states fixed window aluminum anodized natural color tempered glass commercial grade. And if we are not suggesting some sort of a surround for those windows, it would make sense for them to install a storefront system there. And the storefront system actually could, the glazing could be set in the middle as opposed to the outside facing. And so storefront is 4.5 inches. If it's set inside, I'll basically have a 2-inch reveal in there. And so I would suggest that all the fixed windows to be storefront, natural aluminum stock frame material. The eyebrows in the front, a natural aluminum color material would be fine as far as cladding, and they could work with staff on that. But it should be some sort of an aluminum, not a plastic. You don't want to have a plastic out there, especially with the sun. It's not going to wear well. As far as Mr. Yu's comments, I think he's right on. It would be nice to extend that entry out and pronounce it. And because these elevations that are illustrated to us on the new A4 illustrates the brow actually sticking out, say, 4 to 6 inches past the entry, and that could be redesigned a bit by just pulling the entry out towards the street. And my preference would be with the yellow and brown color as well. Yes. Those are my thoughts.
Thank you for the internet. I'm looking for the Thespia or Trespa. Okay. I concur. I think that the project tightened up nicely with the landscaping, with the color, with the applications for the eyebrows. I have nothing more to add.
Okay, so if you don't mind, I'll read the conditions back. First one was to depict the 30-inch overhang on the site plan. 2 would be to change the landscaping proposed along the driveway to agapantha. 3 would be to consider relocating the signage. 4 would be to resolve the entry piece and eyebrow piece to either be flush or have the entry extend closer to the street. 5 would be to replace all proposed fixed windows to be storefront system. 6, to ensure that the aluminum cladding for the eyebrow actually be metal. And last,
Or aluminum.
from eyebrow.
Could be sheet metal or aluminum.
And last but not least, that the color scheme be the proposed, and forgive me, I know it's not brown, it's actually more of a wine in yellow.
But we're calling it, it's identified as exhibit. Well, we could put on it,
Actually, it's the one that's submitted for the design review board. Checkmark, yes, thank you. So with those conditions, are there...
I have a quick question. Mr. Yu mentioned as a consideration to include the surrounds. Is that something that we wanted to provide as a consideration? Because I also didn't quite understand, Mr. Yu, if you mentioned it would be okay for the surrounds to be in a different material other than metal.
And forgive me, because I guess I understood it as that once you replace the fixed windows with a storefront system, that would actually be the aluminum frame that the board is looking at instead of
the frame would be a little thicker.
And forgive me, I mean, it can be an either or, but
I think either
it's up to you.
That's
or either storefront windows or provide the stucco surrounds.
I mean, how do you guys feel about that? I mean, it's just a consideration, so I
The
guess it doesn't.
storefront's fine. It's not a highly visible area.
Okay. So just keep it at the storefront then.
Storefront, okay.
Great, thank you.
Thank you. So with those conditions, any other ones that you recall? Okay, is there a motion to approve with conditions?
Make a motion to approve with those conditions?
I have a motion made by Board Member Simonian. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
A second by Board Member Palmer. In terms of a roll call, Board Member Palmer?
Yes.
Board Member Simonian?
Yes.
Board Member Yu?
Yes.
Chairman Insua?
Yes.
Motion passes 4-0.
Okay.
And
Do we need a break, or we want to go to the next one?
Let's go.
Let's forge
All right,
ahead.
let's go to the next
forge
project.
ahead. All right.
Okay, the next project And the last project for this evening is case number 1 PDR 2009-063-A. The address is 3525 Downing Avenue.
I'm going to quickly pass out a staff report prepared by the code enforcement staff before I begin my presentation.
Nice. They learned that if they provide this, then they don't have to be there.
And since our system doesn't seem to be showing the photographs on the camera, I'm going to pass out the original photographs, the neighborhood's photo survey, and the color material board.
Thank
These
you.
are also the photos that were taken and submitted by the code enforcement staff.
Thank you.
Okay. The last case on tonight's agenda is case number 1-PDR 2009-063A. The property is located at 3525 Downing Avenue, and the applicant and owner are Mark Rousseau. This is a first-time submittal for final review. The project consists of legalizing a second-story addition of approximately 1,400 square feet to an existing one-story, 984 square foot house located on a 656,500 square foot lot. There's also an addition on the first floor and obviously on the second floor. And as part of the proposal, the existing one-car garage will be demolished and a new two-car garage constructed. Again, I just want to briefly, I can go into all the details of the staff report, which consists of site planning. In terms of site planning, the existing building you'll notice here is outlined. The second floor has been pushed to the back. The existing one-car garage will be demolished and pushed all the way to the corner for a two-car garage. The proposed site plan is rather consistent with the other homes, and again, this property is located in the Spar Heights area, whereby most of the single-family homes are in the middle of the lot and have garages in the rear, detached garages in the rear. So the proposal is consistent and compatible with the surrounding properties. The second main item under our staff report would be mass and scale. Now, the existing home, or the original home, I should say, was a one-story, 980 square foot house. The applicant has expanded. You'll notice here, has expanded the first floor footprint to the south, and then also to the west, to the rear of the structure, and then has located a new second-story addition atop to the back of the house, and so it's also been set back on essentially all three sides. There's a rather significant setback on the front of approximately 25 feet from the front plane. There's an approximately 8-foot setback on the south side and an approximate setback of 10 feet on the north side. So it is also tucked behind the ridge of the existing home, so it's not as visible as it would be typically if the addition was placed at the front of the home. So in terms of mass and scale, there's also several other homes in the Spar Heights in the neighborhood survey that are 2 stories, although primarily there are only 1-story homes in the immediate neighborhood. So 2-story are not atypical in the Spar Heights. What staff noted in the staff report was the fact that, and I'm going to go into this a little bit further when I discuss the architectural style and design, is how the second-story addition is actually placed and located within the existing, or atop, I should say, the original 1-story house. That the interplay, the mass and scale, the way that the roof lines are essentially problematically integrated, and the fact that this particular, with the legalization of this second-story addition, it would be the largest home. Essentially, the home would have a total of 2,400 square feet. This would be over 500 square feet greater than any other homes in the neighborhood survey area. and approximately 800 square feet greater than the average size. So it would be the largest home, essentially, in its neighborhood survey area. So again, because the massing is set back from the front elevation as well as the interior elevations placed behind the existing side gable roof, that sort of minimizes the street level presence, which is a good thing. But that the bulk, the overall massing, essentially the roof design, is somewhat inappropriate to the existing house. And because the home is the largest in scale, it's really a toss-up in terms of, what do you consider more of an importance, whether it's the massing, the scale, the size, or how actually the bulk of the addition has been placed on the existing home. Last but not least, building design and detailing. The original home, you'll notice here, because the front elevation, the majority of the front elevation has been maintained. It's a streamlined Tudor Revival style. You have the leaded diagonal pane windows set within recessed wood frames. You have the steeply sloped pitched gable roofs above the front entryway and in the front. Fortunately, though, all those items have been maintained as part of this original proposal. The applicant has incorporated wood windows, the same style of stucco exterior materials, the same type of roof materials into his new addition. So in terms of integrating the two in regards to in regards to material and colors, that has been well done, the materials and colors. It's the architectural detailing. It would be essentially the slope of the roof, because when you look at Tudor Revivals, typically they're steeper pitched. This is a somewhat flatter roof line. You'll notice here the gabling on the end, whereas here you have steeply pitched gables here. It sort of is cut off here, and then it has this other different type of pitch to the back. Again, when you take a look at these, because of the colors and materials are somewhat consistent with the original home, that is, a complementary and a very good thing for the design. Yet the way that the roofing system has been done, the massing of the addition, there are issues that typically, if you were to see this case, had it not been done, staff might have suggested perhaps you need to take a look at the way that the addition has been integrated into the home. Take a look at the proposed roof pitch. Take a look at the building forms. Perhaps reconsider and redesign those. But this particular project is a code enforcement case. It's also a city attorney case. The second story addition was completed, and it was inspected when it already had been looking like this. So the initial complaint came in early part of 2007. Okay, the second story addition, I don't know how, but already had been completed. So it's not like it was caught mid-act or whatnot. As such, it's gone through the code enforcement process. It's at the city attorney level. Obviously, they're trying to legalize it. It's before you today to do so. We are staff. Again, when you're looking at the compliance of the project in terms of zoning code, it complies with zoning code. In terms of the materials and colors, the placement, the fact that it's placed further back from the street, it's tucked behind the original ridge, it's set back from all the interior elevations. Those are typical standards that we would recommend for applicants, locating a second story on an existing one-story home. But because of the way that the roof forms have been integrated, because of the mass, the size of the actual project itself, staff was really torn, and we felt that based on those items, the board can take a look at this for return for redesign, or you can proceed on how you wish to proceed. Again, this project has been constructed, it's completely done, and it's before you today to see whether or not you feel that it's consistent and compatible with the existing Tudor Revival home and the surrounding neighborhood. That concludes staff's presentation. Renee Sada, the code enforcement inspector, is in the audience. There was a brief summary of the code enforcement schedule calendar of enforcement activity. Photographs are in your packet. Mark Rousseau, the applicant and property owner, is also in the audience. We've been working with him diligently to get the project to where it is today to show you for DRB since last August. So, any other questions? Sorry for the detailed staff presentation, but because of all the various nuances of this case, we felt it necessary.
Excellent. Any questions we have for staff?
Yes, for example, we have this portion, which is right next to the porch. So this was an addition, correct?
Correct.
And on the other side, where the porch, which one of these pictures would depict the 631 square foot? This.
Okay, if you noticed here, this particular cutout
Is this picture?
is this picture, this location. So if you like, I can pin that up.
Okay. Okay.
Here we can even. So this circled area right here is this portion that's been added. All of this portion back here is the expansion on the first floor along the driveway. You'll notice right here.
And as far as exactly on the other side of it?
This essentially all of this, all of the back location and this projecting second floor addition, all of it is brand new.
Do we have a picture from this angle by any chance, which is, I think...
It would be essentially this. So the house would have cut off a little bit further back here.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Any other questions for staff?
Since we could consider Mr. Code Enforcement Officer part of staff, do we want to see if we have questions for him or anything he may want to add for us, or do you want to go straight to the speaker and then use Code Enforcement?
This is pretty evident. Why don't we just go to the speaker?
Okay. All right. Good.
Unless he wants to say something.
Well, I think you can probably, if we have questions, we'll probably a support role. Okay, why don't we go to the speaker? Name and address when you come up here, sir. Mr. Mark Rousseau. Thank you, sir.
Mark Rousseau, 3525 Downing Avenue.
Good evening. Anything that you had maybe thought about or planned that you wanted to give us as with respect to your home and?
Not really. I mean, I'm here to comply with what the city wants, bottom line. So, and, they've been more than helpful. The planning department has helped me so much. So, if you have any questions for me.
Okay.
I have a question. What happened?
Well, it was a lapse in judgment, basically. I had some very, I put that, talented and helpful people. It was a gesture on death of the family, pretty much. And it was a long time with the mourning, and, as a gesture, this came about, essentially, without going into too much personal detail.
Mr. Simonian.
Who did the renovation? Who was the builder of the renovation?
Friends and co-workers who were versed in the building.
What business are you in?
I'm a firefighter.
And during the renovation, were you guys living in the house?
Yes.
And you were owners at the time of the renovation?
Yes, I've been there 15 years.
I get a couple questions. Who did the drawings that coordinated this substantially significant construction?
That I'm not sure. I wasn't involved in it, so I mean, it was done during the time we were kind of mourning, so I wasn't too with it when they were doing this.
Friends and coworkers are the ones who did the construction. Of course, no, it's Ms. Palmer.
Was there any engineering done on this?
As far as I know, yes. I mean,
do you have any drawings or anything that you were able to gather? You sat through the other.
No.
No, I mean when this work is being done, especially as significant as it is, there is a level of drawings and coordination that have to happen to direct people to do work. Beams to be placed here, footings to be put here. It just doesn't happen. And you would imagine that during this process, and of course your grief and your suffering and your loss is important and significant, and sometimes things get out of hand. But it seems that the addition of this type, the ordering of windows, the paying, who paid for this stuff?
Well, I did. I paid for this stuff.
You know,
I understand what you're saying.
You know, it's like and it doesn't happen just over a weekend. You know,
Right.
Goodness, I can have friends of mine come over and we can bang out a barbecue in the weekend. This is. You know, you got neighbors, you got friends, you got footings, you got foundations. This is a year project at least. But no records, no nothing that you have in your home.
Not that I have, no.
You lived in a home 15 years.
Yes.
With all due respect, I think that if and when the project receives DRB approval, it will go through the permitting process, and all that engineering
Correct.
will be checked. We're very grateful that the applicant is willing to be cooperative, and so we would just suggest this be reviewed as any other DRB case would be.
Yeah.
Thank
I think
you.
what we're trying to do is, since we've always have had a sense for the applicant not spending more than they can, you know, just we always, at least we have always wanted to be very supportive, and I think our questions are in that vein to help us. At least for me, my perspective.
Yeah, it is a little bit of a head scratcher, but we would just
If I can ask
respectfully.
you a question,
Yeah.
who prepared these drawings?
That was me, and I had another friend.
So you're in how can you've worked on drawings over your career? You do drawings?
No, I've got a little bit of art background, but I had friends helping me with that were not the same that did the house.
And you didn't do any drawings during this period to help?
No.
Even though you did these?
Well, yeah, I mean, I had help with these. I didn't do these.
Okay.
The computer plans, not me. The pencil drawings, mostly me.
Okay. Any more questions for the applicant? We may have some more. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Do we have any questions for the code enforcement officer that may assist? I know we have the record here, or at least he's...
I do.
Okay. Mr. Sada, your name and address in your department, sir, please.
Good evening, Board. Renee Sada, Neighborhood Services Inspector, 114 North Glendale Avenue, room 114.
Thank you, sir. Yes, Mr. Moon.
Thanks so much for sticking around. I know it's late in the evening, so we appreciate you hanging out for about 2.5 hours.
It's my pleasure.
I don't think he sold
I don't think we can trust him.
I don't think he sold
Not
that
being
one.
facetious.
A little quick with that answer there.
Has there been any, I guess, history or any paperwork that any inspections have taken place on this addition?
No,
during the
not
process?
by city staff, none.
And were you the point person that actually went out there the first time and noticed that the addition had taken place?
Correct.
And at that point in time, is it at exactly the same stage as depicted today?
Exactly.
Physically and in the pictures?
Nothing has changed.
That's the only question I had.
Any other questions for the officer?
Thank you.
If I might add,
Of course, Mr.
concur with other staff, the owner has been very cooperative, if that means anything. And
Sorry
there
to-
hasn't been any neighbor outrage or
No one's called?
any additional complaints.
What's wrong
to
with
be
the
honest.
neighborhood? What's going on?
But again, the owner's been very,
course.
very cooperative.
And no more questions for the officer? Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
Thank you,
Of
Renee.
course.
I have a question for staff, and I'm not sure, maybe Mike Cook should have been here for this question, is how, assuming some sort of direction is taken on this, whether it's renovation of the roof, or redesign of the roof, or the massing and whatnot, has there been any discussions internally of how would building and safety come in after the fact to do all the required inspections?
Well, essentially, it would need, if there is an approval, once there is approval, there would be plans submitted. Obviously, you'd have to have structural calculations. It's a two-story addition, two-story home. based on the submitted drawings, I'm sure that the building inspectors would want to have walls opened up, footings, taken a look at, dug around the footings. I mean, there would be, and our chair, Ivan Inso, is shaking his head or nodding.
Yeah.
I mean, they would essentially be requiring, walls and electrical panels to be opened up and taking a look to see if it is built according to whatever plans are submitted and reviewed, obviously, in compliance with all of today's building codes. So the structure would have to essentially meet all of today's building codes and then be inspected to ensure that it's safe, habitable, and in compliance. But again, because
I'm just sorry, my experience, having worked in the building department for a year or two, is times 10, is Villia is absolutely correct. I cannot fathom that they would not ask that this building be opened up significantly. Yeah. They're gonna have to.
Safety
I mean,
issues, yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, these are life safety issues. I mean, the as-built drawings are going to be submitted. They're going to have a structural engineer, do the calcs, and that's all going to be well and good. But it's already built, and I just can't believe Mr. Tom. And again, knowing Mr. Tom the way I do, the building official, he will have to. There'll be no way to verify otherwise whether what has been submitted is what was constructed in the field. There's no other way.
The reason, thank you, Mr. Mallison and staff. The reason why I asked is I think by the time they go through their inspection of this thing, it's going to be like Swiss cheese. I mean, there's going to be openings on the outside, around the windows, on the inside, at the footings, at the beams. There's going to be a lot of openings.
The city of Glendale still, are they allowed Romex, or is that was only Burbank that you required Romex in residential, or a conduit?
Not familiar with the term.
Okay. Oh, okay. I mean,
Exposed electrical wire.
yeah. I mean, it's just.
We can't have.
I know. Please.
you'd have to either come up or...
I know. What we're just getting at is not it's just the rough order of magnitude that is so grave and so large of what you're going to have to go through, even if we said that's fine, go ahead. That it's very sad.
Okay, so those were the reason why I asked the question was to bring up that fact that we're being asked to redesign this project, but in not so many words. So we're being asked to comment on what is built. So I'd like to take the viewpoint that we have a clear palette in front of us. The front seems to remain the way it's already remained, and maybe we could concentrate on the sides and so forth. But personally, I think I'm going to basically approach this as somewhat of a new submittal, because by the time inspectors are done going through it, there's going to be a lot of openings and investigation that's going to take place. And so a majority of this addition is going to be compromised one way or another. And so that's the direction I would like to at least take on this. And this is probably the most significant one we've gone so far of this magnitude. I mean, we've gotten others, but this was very extreme, and it's ironic that it was placed on the same agenda as the window one.
Yeah.
We rarely get these.
Well, the window one was a
The window one
continuation.
Was a continuation, exactly. No.
Okay.
So we did it to ourselves.
No?
Mr. Yu, why don't you
Okay.
help us along here?
I'm shaking my head. I'm trying to kind of get my thoughts together on this, but I guess I understand that you're coming to us now with sort of the way it is now. I can't give you any direction. It's wrong all the way around. Every decision that was made is wrong. The addition, the way it's added, how the roof kind of peeks up through the top, the massing of it, the roofing. the way it's sloped. These drawings, I mean, they look like they were prepared by somebody that has some knowledge of what's going on. But there's a lot of inconsistencies between the plans, the elevations, what's going on, the materials, what part's existing, the hatching goes 2-3 different ways. There's no legend that tells me what it is. I would sort of want to see, and I understand this is sort of the first part, bringing it in as is, like this. But I would like to see if you're trying to keep any of that, you need to bring to us a design of this is what I propose to do to it to make it more palatable.
I think that may be
Because-
the next thing if we return it for redesign. That at this point, they want to get this.
Because there's nothing for us to look at. It's just we just go no, and I don't know what we say. I mean,
Where do you begin?
yeah, we say no. I don't know.
What you could do is advise the applicant to engage with an architect or a design professional who could, look at what's there, give them some professional advice as how to modify it, or whatever that would make it palatable. We've worked with the applicant over the course of several months. We will continue to work with the applicant and whatever architect or designer he might choose. That if there aren't any, if the board believes that there are no real specific recommendations that they could give at this point, that may be the best condition, the best advice the board could provide.
Thank you.
And I would also include the front porch area. I don't think, that's all renovated as well, too.
Yeah, that's-
It's not just everything in the back, so.
Yeah. Mr. Simonian.
I think, Mr. You nailed it on the head. Everything that's was done incorrectly, and as staff is asking for some clarifications, and so I'll just take a few moments and go over some of the additions, some portions of the addition that do not work architecturally. Now, I think it's very important for you to seek and hire an expert at this, which is a licensed architect. Because the first step is to, and here comes advice, and here comes a collaboration of how to help the situation. The first step will be to really look at the internal of the house, the interior use of the house, the rooms and so forth, and what areas you could move, what areas you can't move physically, or what areas can you move where it's not going to cause too much of a hardship. And then that expert designer or architect needs to then work backwards, and it's literally working backwards, and trying to make a facade work with the Tudor style, and at the same time keep the functionality of the interior of the building working. And so that's the idea behind this. And so this portion, which is depicted right next to the driveway, you have these arches that die directly into this building. And so that is odd, and that needs to be worked out. For example, because it's just plainly evident that an addition was done, and it just doesn't work. So that's an area that needs to be worked out. The rear of the house, the way these windows sit on top of these semi-arched openings is completely wrong. There's no symmetry to it. There's no logic to it. You have nothing is lining up. So you have a rectilinear long window on this side, and then you have more of a rectilinear horizontal window. And there's no justification for it, nor is there any kind of a tie-in to what's happening underneath it. As we move around this building on this side, which is the opposite of the driveway, again, we have this roof situation that staff is referring to that doesn't make a lot of sense. And so we have windows with divided light on the top and on the second floor, and then you have windows downstairs that don't have any buttons in there. And so it's a hodgepodge of styles, materials, construction methodology that just doesn't work. And so that's where you really need the help of a professional to come in and try to design something that would work with the front of the house, because the house in the front is very appealing. It has its original character. It's a decent example of a Tudor, and so it's not going to be difficult to just mimic what's happening in the front. There's a great example of the style in the front, and so it's really literally taking the language that's present on the street side and continuing it, and that's the only way I think we could begin to analyze this, is if we from you get a starting point, and then we could then take it from there, and then building and safety could do what they have to do to legalize it.
Just as a question, one of the things that, and I just want to acknowledge Vilya and Renee for having worked with the applicant over the course of the past several months. The applicant has been very cooperative, and they've really done the heavy lifting to get the applicant to this point. What I'd like to ask is, when we were discussing, when we were evaluating the design for the staff report, very often we'll evaluate the design and try to make some suggestions to present to the board. And we discussed, would it be preferable to have the roof on the second floor match the pitch of the roof, of the existing roof? And what we thought is that then makes the addition very tall. So we just wanted to mention to you what we've discussed in-house, that if the pitch were maybe turned and you didn't see the slope, if the pitch were turned, then the slope on the second floor were still different than the slope of the existing pitch, then perhaps it wouldn't be as tall, but you wouldn't see those pitches in the same view. So it's something that I wanted to throw out, because the design professional that the owner hires is going to be struggling with that as well. So we thought maybe to be a little proactive on that point would be useful.
Thank you. Any other? Oh, yes, Ms.
Yeah. I think the applicant is going to have to realize that in order to get those roof areas to work, that some of this portion of this development is going to have to be gone. And just looking at the overall, I've got 3 different types of windows, 4 different type of roof pitches, 3 different type of roof types. So eliminating some of the square footage might help them to work that out so that everything becomes integrated. And I think they also need to be sensitive to that. This particular neighborhood has really, in the last 10 years, you go around the street, especially around the block just behind them, they've upgraded a lot of the houses. And I think that just because it's behind the front of this house, this size, even though it fits with the percentages, it needs to be, the whole house has to be compatible with the rest of the neighborhood.
And square footage, too.
Square footage as well as the way it looks. And that whatever professional works with this should consider eliminating some of the square footage. And so maybe the applicant can look and see what they can, as Mr. Simoning says, what they can do without. But I don't think we can give any concrete suggestions at this point, because it's wrong.
Mr. Wu, anything else you wanted to share?
No, that's all.
It's a shame that you here today. So much, and I've heard that word a couple times, and it's sad that we have to use that word. So much has been done that's wrong, that is going to be very difficult without looking very hard at massing, very hard at size, very hard at square footage, very hard at bulk, very hard at a location of these elements and adjacencies to other areas. You picked out the archway that just dies into nothing, compromising a beautiful home in a beautiful neighborhood, the hodgepodge of inconsistencies of windows and sizes and locations. I hate to use that word. It's so bad, so much of it, that it's not going to be an easy challenge to solve them. And I believe it's going to take a very talented, committed architect or design professional to look at what's wrong and come up with something that is going to be successful. And I don't think it's going to be remove this window and we'll change this thing. It is very bad. And it's going to take someone of great skill and talent to make it successful. Areas that have been discussed, I could never see myself supporting. Adjacencies of this house as it's into this driveway, and the roofing that's here, and it's completely different and wrong. The house, the bulk, the pitch, the rear yard, the archway, and it just goes on, and it's sad. But it is really going to take quite a talented, skilled person to just work on the architecture. And your job isn't done yet, because that's just design review. And then you're going to have a very competent, seasoned engineer, whether structural or civil, to look at the building and life safety issues concerning what would then be removed and not removed. Plus a very talented and successful electrical engineer, plumber, looking at what you did, how you did it, how these walls, shear walls, everything. Then a person who can put all these drawings together, then submit them post design review to the building department, and they're going to look at this project, scrutinize it, because it's such a life safety issue. So your design is not only going to have to prove the design, but it's going to have to prove what's been built there. So it's going to have to prove two different things. Can what's been built justify how it was built? And then you're going to have to hire a contractor who's going to demolish this, and that risk of demolishing something or parts of it that may compromise the existing house. Then you're going to have to hire a general contractor who's going to assume the risk of building something new that's already been built. It's sad. But I think that in this particular case, so much of it is wrong that I think it's going to be difficult, and I couldn't imagine all these steps being done properly. And ultimately, you got a great neighborhood with a really attractive home, and that you'll hopefully be able to look back and say, at least we accepted what occurred, and with the positive influence that staff is saying, you'll put this behind you and move. You got a lot of positive people in the city pulling for you. They will pull for you. Everyone here in the department wants people to be successful. So anyway, let's see what the comments were written. But I think see what Vilya and Stephanie have, but
I know the two of us we're comparing notations. I was just going to take a quick stab at it, and I hope Stephanie will jump in. I'm sure she will. First one was B2, not the first. Essentially, there's only one main condition in this case, with several points. B to engage or hire a licensed architect or design professional to completely reevaluate the following major points that just do not work within the home. One would be to take a look at the internal layout and make the take a look, pare it down to what really is required, and then to make the exterior work to reflect that. You would need to address such items as the interplay and interaction of elements, like the addition at the side driveway on the first floor with the existing roof line. The window fenestration patterns, window locations, type, size, style, the various roof forms, because you have numerous pitches, types, forms. Take a look and have that all integrated. to reflect the style that is existing still in the front. Now, the true streamline Tudor revival style, and then to reflect that on all the elevations in the rear. Again, to accomplish this, some of the square footage might be lost. And to make sure that you realize that the hodgepodge of the windows be resolved, to take a look at the size, the massing, the bulk, the location of the elements, and the interaction of the elements. All of these items would then have to be addressed by this licensed architect or design professional, and to come back to the board as a return for redesign. Did I adequately summarize that, Stephanie?
For me, I'm good with it. Very good, very good notes and return for information.
Sounds good.
Now, again, I just want to make note, this would be a return for redesign with this one condition with multiple parts, essentially revising the entire scope of the project. Because this is a first-time submittal for final review, they would have to come back within 6 months in order for it to be a second-time submittal for final review. And according to our code, at that point in time, the design review board would either have to approve with conditions, or deny the project.
Right.
Okay, those would be the only possibilities. Under very special circumstances, based on the most recent design review board amendments, correct me if I'm wrong, Stephanie, the board has the ability to request one last additional view. But these are under very special circumstances. And to date, that's not been employed. Yes, Board Member Palmer?
What we would propose, if that was to come back for redesign in 6 months, does that have any conflict with this agreement with city attorney? Or
well, now again, with the city attorney, I've been in regular communications with her as well. And as long as the property owner is working consistently on moving this project forward in a timely manner, then, the city attorney has the ability to make sure that the case remains open. And she just, we're in constant communication. She just monitors the progress, and I'm sure Mr. Rousseau will be working diligently towards resolution.
Okay.
With that said, any other?
Additional discussion?
Do I have a motion to return for redesign with that summarized comment?
I'll move that we return for design based on the comments made.
Okay, I have a motion by Board Member Palmer. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Board Member Yu. In terms of a roll call, Board Member Palmer?
Yes.
Board Member Yu?
Yes.
Board Member Simonian?
Yes.
Chairman Insua?
Yes.
The motion passes 4-0. Okay. And we do have the minutes of April the 15th for your review. There was only one case that evening. All board members were present. This was the legalization of the windows that to be continued to
Yes.
today's date.
Okay. We're all good with the
So
I move to approve those minutes.
I have a motion by Board Member Palmer. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Board Member Yu. In terms of a roll call, Board Member Palmer?
Yes.
Board Member Yu?
Yes.
Chairman Simonian?
Yes.
Sorry, not Chairman.
Board member.
Yes, Board Member Simonian. And Chairman Insua.
Yes.
Motion passes 4-0. With that, was there a motion to adjourn approximately 8 o'clock?
I'll move to adjourn.
Thank you very much.
We don't need a second on that.
No.
We're adjourned.